3948, Knights of Rizal versus DMCI Homes Incorporated, DMCI Project Developers Incorporated, City of Manila, National Commission for Culture and the Arts, National Museum, and National Historical Commission of the Philippines. Appearing as amici curiae, we have the following: Attorney Johnson V. Domingo is the Acting Executive Director, National Building Code Development Office. Engineer Agustin S. Torres, Consultant NBCDO, Architect Emmanuel P. Contapay, former Executive Director NBCDO, Attorney Antonio M. Bernardo, Chief Executive Officer and Commissioner, Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board. Appearing as counsel for petitioner Knights of Rizal, we have Attorney William L. Hazarino. Appearing as counsel for respondent DMCI Homes Incorporated, we have Attorney Basilio D. Gascon Jr. Appearing as counsel for respondent DMCI Project Developers Incorporated, we have Attorney Roberto N. Dio, Attorney Leonid C. Nolasco, Attorney Victor P. Lasatin. Counsel for Respondent, City of Manila, we have Attorney Jose Alberto C. Flaminiano, and then Attorney Luis E. Del Mundo Jr. For Respondent, NHCP, we have Attorney Jose Manuel I. Jocno and Attorney Jose E. Dalisay III. From the Office of the Solicitor General, we have Solicitor General Florin T. Hilbay, Assistant Solicitor General Vida G. San Vicente, State Solicitor Marie Christine R. Nolasco Jimenez, Associate Solicitor Emerson S. Banes, and Associate Solicitor Gerardo E. Mendoza.
Will the counsels please sit down? We shall resume with the interpellation of Solicitor General Hilbay. Please take the podium, Solicitor General. By interpellation will be done by Justice Aguilesa first.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, Mr. Solgen.
Good afternoon, Justice Aguilesa.
Just a few questions. How many times have you taken a position as a Tribune of the People?
While we do not take it lightly, the invocation of that power, there are a lot of cases in our jurisprudence where the Solicitor General's office has taken that particular position. Exemplary cases would be in civil cases involving expropriation, criminal cases involving requests for acquittal, amendment of or modification of penalties. Constitutional cases, for example, the case would be Gamboa, where the Office of the Solicitor General even reversed itself and took a different position on motion for reconsideration. And so we believe, Your Honor, that insofar as the authority of the Solicitor General to invoke that power is concerned, that power is deeply embedded in our jurisprudence. It is also clear in the statute, Your Honor, that the Office of the Solicitor General is an independent and autonomous office, and therefore has full discretionary powers to fully defend the Republic.
Well, in your specific case, how long have you been Solgen, Mr. Solgen?
1 year and I think 1 month.
And I understand this is the first time you're taking a position before this court in an oral argument as Tribune of the People?
Yes, Your Honor.
And if I may share with you, I stayed 2.5 years in the same office, and I only took 2 positions as Tribune of the People. I think to underscore that this is a power that is, and a privilege that is used sparingly by your office, then and now.
Yes, Your Honor.
And when you take a position as Tribune of the People, whom do you consult?
Your Honor, there's actually no need for the Solicitor General to consult anyone. Well, ordinarily, you discuss with the client agency to confer with the client agency that you disagree with the views of the client agency, and In certain cases, I suppose it might be prudent to inform the Office of the President, especially in matters that affect the powers of the President. But insofar as a legal requirement to confer with anyone, there's really no such requirement because the discretion is given to the office by statute.
But you do need to inform a client agency that you disagree with them if there is such a disagreement.
Certainly, Your Honor. Just like, for example, in this particular case, I personally had 2 meetings with all the agencies concerned. The first one several weeks before the oral arguments, before the submission of the position paper. It was meant to ensure that we are on the same page with respect to the result. The second one, a few days before the filing of the position paper, just to finalize everything. And I thought it was very important given the rather conflicting positions of the agencies in this case. Normally, the office would have only one client agency, and therefore communication with that client agency is very easy to establish. But in certain cases, as in this particular case where you have 3 client agencies with rather different views on the matter, it becomes more complex.
And Mr. Solgen, does it ever happen that the Solgen may take a position on one issue against a client, but on other issues in the same case, it agrees with the client?
Well, on a constitutional matter, what I can remember would be the litigation, the cybercrime case, where the Office of the Solicitor General represented the client agency, but at the same time went ahead to say upfront that the takedown clause of the cybercrime statute is unconstitutional. And so it's not incompatible for the Office of the Solicitor General to agree with the client with respect to, well, the main result of the case, which is to defend the constitutionality or validity of an action, and at the same time disagree with the same client agency with respect to an incident related to that case.
And would you be able to cite instances in constitutional cases or issues where the Office of the Solgen has changed its position?
Yes, Your Honor, we will be more than willing to enumerate the cases in our memorandum. But again, if we're looking for an exemplar case, I would say that the case of Gamboa would be the exemplar case where Solicitor General Cadiz decided to reconsider his position, not only at the get-go, not only during the oral arguments, but during the motion for reconsideration of the case.
That will be all, Chief.
Thank you,
Any other
Justice
questions
Cardelezo.
from the justices for the Solicitor General? There being none, Mr. Solicitor General, thank you. You're excused.
Thank you, Chief.
We call on Attorney Diokno.
Your Honors, please, may I just make it of record that I'm appearing in this case pro bono for the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. The only compensation I expect to receive in this case, in my sister's words, are her undying love and affection. May it please the Honorable Court. The National Historical Commission of the Philippines finds itself a respondent in a mandamus case where no party has accused them of failing to perform an act that the law specifically enjoins as a duty, the essential element of a mandamus action. Petitioner Knights of Rizal have not accused the NHCP or any of its officials of failing to do their lawful duty, By their own admission, they did not question or put in issue the NHCP's performance of its mandate, and, quote, did not allege or establish any specific ministerial acts which respondents NHCP, NM, and MCCA failed to perform in connection with the construction of the Torre de Manila condominium project. The other respondents, the National Museum, National Commission for Culture and the Arts, City of Manila, and DMCI, have likewise not accused the NHCP or its officials of failing to do their duty. The only one who has pointed an accusing finger at the NHCP is their very own legal counsel, the Solicitor General, who initially supported the NHCP but recently changed his mind and has now taken a position against his own client. The NHCP thus finds itself in the unenviable and peculiar position of having to defend against accusations made by their very own lawyer and no one else. Be that as it may, the NHCP has fulfilled its mandate and complied with its duties to protect and conserve the Rizal Monument and Rizal Park within the bounds of its lawful powers. I stress the word lawful powers, Your Honors, because the NHCP is an administrative agency created by Congress. It is not a court vested with judicial power, neither is it a legislature vested with lawmaking power. As an administrative agency, it is well settled that the NHCP can only exercise powers expressly granted to it by statute and those necessarily implied in the exercise of its express powers. Section 25 of RA 166 gives the NHCP the power to issue cease and desist orders, but only, and I quote, when the physical integrity of the national cultural treasures or important cultural properties are found to be in danger or of destruction or significant alteration from its original state. The term physical integrity is not a term of art and has a very plain meaning. When we speak of the physical integrity of an object, we are speaking of its material body. When the law speaks of the physical integrity of the Rizal Monument and the Rizal Park, it is speaking of the material body of the monument and park, including open spaces within the park's territorial boundaries and the mandated 5-meter buffer zone. The word physical, Your Honors, obviously qualifies the word integrity. If the word physical were to be removed, as proposed by Senator Pia Cayetano in the Senate bill she filed recently to amend RA 166, the NHCP would be the first to issue a cease and desist order against DMCI. The NHCP, in fact, welcomes the move by Senator Cayetano to amend RA 166. Her filing of Senate Bill number 2841, we submit, is a tacit admission that the law in its present state does not cover the view or visual integrity of the Rizal Monument and Rizal Park. It has been argued, however, that the NHCP violated its own guidelines when it failed to issue a CDO to stop the Torre de Manila project. Nothing can be further from reality. Under accepted local, national, and international conservation practice, the state and local legislative bodies have a vital role to play in regulating the views, sightlines, and setting of national monuments and historic sites. The UNESCO recommendation on historic urban landscape, for instance, provides that member states should, and I quote, adopt the appropriate legislative institutional framework with a view to applying the principles and norms set out in this recommendation in the territories under their jurisdiction. UNESCO's operational guidelines for the implementation of the World Heritage Convention, in addition, provide, and I quote, that legislative and regulatory measures at national and local levels should assure the survival of the property and its protection. Local legislation is needed, Your Honors, because national monuments and historic sites vary in size, height, dimension, and other physical characteristics, and it is the local government, in consultation with the local community, that can best determine the appropriate height restrictions to impose on buildings and to designate the views, sightlines, and backgrounds that should be protected for monuments and historic sites in their locality. In The municipality of Taal, Batangas, for example, the local government in 2009 passed Municipal Ordinance Number 3, declaring the perimeters of the heritage zone and buffer and identifying the St. Martin of Tours Basilica as the view subject to be legally protected. Hence, the ordinance in Batangas specified a building height of 12 meters. In Iloilo City, the city government in 2000 passed implementing rules and regulations for Ordinance Number 00-054, requiring that the building height, massing, scale, and facade design of new architecture be compatible with the style and character of surrounding heritage buildings. In London, it was their city council that determined and prescribed the legally protected sight lines to St. Paul's Cathedral, the Westminster Palace, and the Tower of London. As could be seen on the slide, the legally protected, this is the slide of the legally protected sight line. Next slide, please. And that is the slide, the first is the slide of the sight line, and this is the site of the legally protected view of the cathedral. And in Bali, it was their provincial government that passed legislation imposing a height restriction on buildings of 15 meters, about the height of a coconut tree. In line with the accepted local, national, and international practice, the NHCP issued guidelines on national monuments, urging local governments to impose height restrictions on buildings and to take other actions to protect the view of national monuments and sites within their territories. I quote from the guidelines. It is highly recommended that towns and cities formulate zoning guidelines or local ordinances for the protection and development of monument sites and the promotion of a clear and green environment, and strictly implement these laws, especially in places where important monuments and structures are located. A buffer zone should be provided around the vicinity of monuments and sites and should be made part of the respective city or municipal land use and zoning regulations through local legislation. Height of buildings surrounding or in the immediate vicinity of the monument or site should be regulated by local building code or special local ordinance to enhance the prominence, dominance, and dignity of the monument, more importantly, the national monuments." End quote. The City of Manila, however, has not passed any legislation imposing height restrictions on buildings or prescribing the views, sightlines, and setting to be protected for the Rizal Monument and Rizal Park. The Solicitor General has argued, Your Honors, in his position paper that mandamus lies against the NHCP, that the NHCP statutory mandate to protect the physical integrity of cultural artifacts necessarily includes protection of the sightline of the Rizal Monument, that the Rizal Monument is a sui generis cultural artifact whose physical value as a national cultural treasure requires the preservation of its sightlines, that the only way to conserve the Rizal Monument is by removing the impairment to its sightline, referring to the Torre de Manila, that in the area of heritage conservation, the concept of physical integrity has a flexible attribute, and that the construction of the Torre de Manila impairs the physical integrity of the Rizal Monument. Mr. General's arguments remind me, Your Honors, of how easy it is for lawyers to quote torture words out of all semblance of meaning, close quotation. To answer him, I need only to quote from his own consolidated comment dated December 19, 2014, where he said, and I quote, "Clearly, Respondent NHCP's duty to issue a CDO arises only when the physical integrity of the subject cultural property is found to be in danger of destruction or significant alteration from its original state. At most, the type of alteration, deterioration, or destruction alleged in the petition pertains only to the sightline of the Rizal Monument and the alleged adverse effect the Torre de Manila construction would have on the importance of the Rizal Monument. However, the aforementioned alterations are not constitutive of any physical damage to the monument and the park, which is what is explicitly contemplated in Section 25 of RA 166. Undoubtedly, the above-mentioned provision speaks of danger or destruction to the physical integrity of the national cultural treasure or important cultural property. It does not denote alterations to the sightline, even if no damage to the physical integrity of the cultural property is caused." One last point before I end, Your Honors, on the applicability of the international instruments on conservation of national monuments and sites. It has been argued that the constitutional provisions on the protection and conservation of our cultural and historical heritage include the protection of views or sightlines. The NHCP begs to disagree. In 2008, architect Francois Leblanc, a specialist in heritage conservation and member of the ICOMOS Academy, examined 45 international charters, declarations, conventions, and recommendations on heritage conservation, and found only 2 that used the word views in the context of views to and from historic monuments and sites. These are the 2005 Sian Declaration on the Conservation of Setting of Heritage Structures, Sites and Areas, and the 1976 UNESCO recommendation concerning the safeguarding and contemporary role of historic areas. After reviewing these documents, however, architect Leblanc concluded as follows, and I quote, "The answer to the question, do the international charters protect important views, is no, at least not specifically. From a review of all the international instruments for the protection of cultural heritage in the annex that follows, it appears that there is a need for the international community of experts in conservation to elaborate principles, definitions, and methodologies for identifying and protecting important views to and from World Heritage Sites, as well as other historic places of national and local significance." Our revered national hero, Jose Rizal, did not want to be glorified after his death. In a letter he wrote to his family shortly before his execution, he said, and I quote, "Bury me in the ground, place a stone and a cross over it, my name, the date of my birth, and of my death. Nothing more. If later you wish to surround my grave with a fence, you can do it. No anniversaries. I prefer Paang Bundok." I dare not speak for him, Your Honors, but I do believe that our national hero would be confounded by all the fuss we are making over his monument. I can hear him saying that we have much bigger problems to address, that all he asked for was a stone, a cross, and perhaps a fence, and that whatever we do with this monument and park, it should be in keeping with the rule of law. I end, Your Honors, with the words of Chief Justice Puno in the case of MMDA versus Bel Air Village Association, where he said, and I quote, "Not infrequently, the government is tempted to take legal shortcuts to solve urgent problems of the people. But even when government is armed with the best of intentions, we cannot allow it to run roughshod over the rule of law. While we hold that the general welfare should be promoted, we stress that it should not be achieved at the expense of the rule of law." Thank you, Your Honors. I'm finished with my opening statement.
Gilesa.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, Counsel.
Afternoon, Your Honor.
I will start with flashing on the screen slide number 1. This will just confirm the guidelines issued by the NHCP. The one on top in maroon, it's listed as the guidelines on monuments. I think that's the one you referred to
Yes,
a
Your
while
Honor.
ago, Counsel. And while I have it there as 2011, I think your reference is 2012, so you
It was
must have
first
a...
issued in 2011, and then a portion was amended in 2012,
Thank
Your
you.
Honor.
So that first guideline is about monuments, and again, just to confirm, the NHCP declared the Rizal monument, the monument itself, as a national monument, a national cultural treasure in 2013.
Yes,
right?
Your Honor. We confirm that.
Now, the second guideline, and correct me if this is accurate, from your web. We believe it was approved January 24, 2012. It's a guidelines on historic centers, towns, and sites.
That is correct, Your Honor, but
Yes.
that is not in connection with the 1995 declaration as a National Historical Site. I believe that is connected with the Heritage Law, RA 166.
Yes, but on the left side, the Rizal Park was declared a National Historical Site by National Historical Institute, the name then, under PD 260, 1973, right?
We confirm that in 1995 it
Thank
was
you,
so declared,
Counsel.
Your Honor.
Now, I will go straight to the point. Can I have the second slide, please? After this controversy had started, the Senate, specifically the committee chaired by Senator Pia Cayetano, called for a hearing and solicited the views of the national cultural agencies, NHCP, NCCA, National Museum, and the National Rizal Parks Development Committee. And the NHCP submitted to the 27 August hearing a position paper. You are familiar with that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. And of course, these are quotes, and you would confirm, please. The first bullet point is a quote where the NHCP said that the Torre, in the case of the Torre, the visual corridor is adversely affected. But of course, it goes on to say, but the structure is well outside any conceivable buffer area.
Yes, Your Honor. The NHCP has never disguised its dislike for the Torre de Manila.
Yes,
The
and
problem that it has faced always is
so
Section
that's
25 of the law.
That's an accurate quote, Counsel. I have
do
no
not
question
have
here.
the papers for that, Your Honor, but I believe that, from my recollection, that is accurate.
Yes, and the second bullet, Counsel, says the Commission does find that the condominium structure visually obstructs the vista and adds an unattractive site to what was once a lovely public image. Again, but it continues, but because the NHCP could not find a legal leg to stand on in stopping the construction. So
From my recollection, that
that's
would
your
be
recollection.
correct,
Yes,
Your
that's
Honor.
correct, Counsel. Now, the question I have is, when did the NHCP arrive at the conclusion on this position that it submitted to the Senate on August 27, 2014?
Wouldn't know the exact date, Your Honor, but it would have to be around that period of time.
It'd be around that. Would you know if this was taken up at a board meeting?
I believe it was discussed in several board meetings. One was taken up in November of 2014, if I'm not mistaken, Your Honor.
Now, do you know the details in arriving at this conclusion? What did the board do? Did it ask staff to investigate
I am
and
not privy.
report to it?
I would assume so, but I am not privy to those details, Your Honor. I'm not aware of those details. What I understand is the board looked at the law that gave them the power to issue a CDO, and saw there that
No, my question, Counsel, is before you go to the law. My question is the ascertainment of the statement, the visual corridor is adversely affected. That's a statement of the commission, right?
as
So
far
what I
as
am
can
interested
recall, Your
in
Honor,
is how did the commission arrive at that statement or conclusion of fact? Did it send staff, or did it go there itself? How many went there? When did they do it?
I'm not in a position to answer that, Your Honor. I'm not aware. I don't know those particular facts, but we have the head of the NHCP is here.
But with the permission of counsel, with the
May I just
chairman
have
be
a minute,
willing
if
to?
I may confer with her, Your Honor?
Yes.
Please, could I request Dr. Diokno to come forward?
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman.
Good afternoon,
So
Justice.
the court would just like to ask the circumstances or the specifics on how the commission or the board arrive at this conclusion that the visual corridor is adversely affected.
Justice Hardelesa,
Yes,
I'm
please
trying to recall this document. What I do recall when I appeared in the Senate hearing myself was that I raised there were two principles of conservation that needed to be resolved, but which seemed to
Yes,
contradict
I'm
each
sorry,
other.
Chairman. We'll go into that. The
Okay.
question I have is,
How did the board arrive?
yes, I mean, before you went to the Senate and before you submit, because this was a written statement, did you meet?
Yes.
Did you send somebody? Did you?
Yes, Your Honor, we sent our team of architects, and then we had actually discussed this as early as 2012.
Okay, as early as 2012. Now,
Yes, Your Honor.
did they submit to you photographs or measurements when you say visual corridor? What were the guidelines or instructions that you had?
My problem, Your Honor, is I don't recall this statement. I know the statement I wrote, which I submitted to the Senate committee.
But the sir, I'm just interested, Madam Chairman, in saying, in arriving at the statement that the visual corridor, this is of the Rizal Monument, obviously, is adversely affected by the Torre. That is a statement of fact. We're not yet on the law.
That is what I'm trying to say, Your Honor. I don't recall that statement of fact. I know the paper I wrote, which I submitted to the Senate committee.
Maybe would
If I could have a copy, but I know
well,
the statement I wrote.
I have here a copy, and
I get my eyeglasses.
yes,
Your
Madam Chairman, please.
Okay. Right. It's this. Yes, okay. What I was referring to, Your Honor, was my question, my statement in paragraph 4. The
Madam
issue
Chair,
is-
I'm sorry to interrupt
okay,
you.
I'm
Please,
sorry.
before I know, that's why to be fair, I said that,
Okay.
and I concede that you have an explanation.
Yes, Your Honor.
But
Okay.
can we do
fine.
this step by step?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
First, on the visual corridor being adversely affected, I would like to know how the commission got to that conclusion. That's a statement of fact. Your statement is the visual corridor of the monument is adversely affected. So, the details of who did you send and for example, where did they stand? Did they take photographs?
Yes, Your Honor, they did.
Did engineers measure it?
Well, the distance between the monument and the Torre, that's measured. then
And
the
what
height-
would be, when is when you say that the visual corridor is adversely affected, would you know how many meters is it from the, because,
Sir,
the reason I'm asking is there's so many versions. You're on one side, to the left, to the right. So exactly, was it from the center line? If there
To
is
the rear, it's behind the monument. The Torre de Manila stands 789 meters behind the monument, but not directly behind it. It's if you're facing the Rizal Monument, it's to the right.
What the question I have is, when you say the visual corridor is adversely affected,
Yes.
what do you mean by the visual
The
corridor?
background, Your Honor.
The visual corridor
Yes,
is
the background of the monument.
is the background of the
Yes.
monument.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and then can I just flash the definition that the agency has on the visual
Yes.
corridor?
Yes.
This is lifted word for word
From our guidelines.
from
Yes.
your guideline.
Yes.
Okay? And so when you say a stretch of buildings, open space, natural, of the historic town,
Mhm.
your interpretation is this is a background.
Yes, Your Honor, because this definition refers to a historic town,
Town.
not to the park. A historic town, for example, like Taal, like Dapitan, like Vigan, like Pila, Laguna. These are historic towns. Normally, when you refer to a visual corridor in a historic town, you refer to a passageway of rows of houses, for example, or similar passageways that will give you, in the case of Taal, for example, a view of the Basilica of Saint Martin de Tours. That's an example of a visual corridor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you,
Now, can I go back to the previous slide? Again, the second sentence says, visually obstructs the vista and adds an unattractive sight. I think that's towards the end, Madam, of the first page and towards the second page. Now, again, your guidelines on towns does not provide for the word vista. I think it defines vista points.
Our guidelines
Your
on historic
guidelines.
towns. Your Honor, those guidelines are not applicable to the Rizal Park.
Mhm.
We use the guidelines on national monuments.
You use the guidelines, the one that when flashed on the screen, the one on
2011.
monuments.
Yes, Your Honor.
That's right. Now, I go back to one question that I'd been asking. The guidelines on monuments was not published.
No, Your
Not
Honor.
published in the not
The
in-
law, UP Law Center.
no, not published in a newspaper of general circulation or in the law center. Okay,
No, they were not, Your Honor.
they were not. Is there any particular reason why the NHCP chose not to publish?
Maybe my
As I understand it, Your Honor, the guidelines are merely interpretative rules. They are not legislative rules issued in implementation of a law. In contrast to the guidelines, the IRR of RA 186, the law creating the NHCP, were duly published and also deposited with the law center.
I agree with you, counsel. The result of not publishing the guidelines is that they partake of the nature and have the force and effect only of an interpretative rule, right? The question is, it seems to me that the commission had the option to publish the guidelines themselves so that they will have force and effect. And is there a particular reason why that was not done by the commission?
I believe, Your Honor, it was not done because the guidelines are just what they are entitled, guidelines. They are simply there to recommend, they are recommendatory in nature, and they actually urge the local governments to pass the necessary legislation to impose restrictions on the height of buildings and to designate the protected visual corridors and views, Your Honor.
The commission was not of the mind to make the guidelines have effect, for example, to protect visual corridors of monuments and dominance of monuments and setting of monuments.
The
I'm
guidelines
talking of
are-
guidelines, the first guideline.
The guidelines, Your Honor, on monuments are in the nature of guidance, are meant only to provide guidance to local government units.
Again, the question I have is, yes, I know that if you don't publish, there are interpretative rules, and then you can just exhort the local governments to pass ordinances. The question is, why did the agency, why did the commission not make them have legal effect by publishing the guidelines so that monuments, sites will be protected?
Even if they had been published, Your Honor, the guidelines would still remain as guidelines because the way they are written is they are simply recommendatory to the local government units. There's nothing there that could be interpreted to say that they are compelling or mandating the local government units.
But
Because
that's
that power
precisely
is lodged with the-
that's precisely the question, counsel. Why did the agency choose to make the mere guidelines rather than, for example, guidelines on monuments, something that local governments have to obey?
Even if the guidelines had been published, Your Honor, the last portion of the guidelines clearly state that for the guidelines to take effect, a local ordinance or zoning regulation would still be necessary. The reason why the Commission does not prescribe any fixed standard is because the composition, the nature, the height of monuments and historic sites vary from town to town and city to city. So we cannot make one general rule that would be all-encompassing for all parts of the country. For instance, in a local community, suppose a community tells us that the important landmark to be protected is the watchtower by the coast. That would have a different sort of character from, for example, another community saying that the important landmark is the church belfry or a monument of Rizal or some even local hero. It's impossible for the Commission to anticipate in each and every instance what the site would be and what its character and dimensions would be. So this is why, even in our guidelines, the last part is very clear. We ask that the local governments legislate an ordinance and or zoning regulations particular to the landmark that they wish to protect.
Madam Chairman, I have no further questions, Chief.
Justice De Castro.
If the guidelines are not published, how will the local government or the offices concerned know about it? What is the purpose of your guidelines? For who will make use of your guidelines if you do not publicize them? How will the people know about your guidelines?
Your Honor, we send them to the local government units.
Okay.
We provide them a copy. Every time there is a request, a concern, or a possibility, a plan, we immediately send a copy of the guidelines. This is why, for instance, Your Honor, we were able to get local ordinances in Taal, in Dapitan, in Cebu, in Iloilo Business District, in Vigan, because we sent, they looked at the guidelines and then they adjusted it according to their specific conditions.
Isn't that more cumbersome than publishing your guidelines? Anyway, the effect will be the same, even if, as you are saying, your guidelines will not anyway bind them. Even if you publish your guidelines, it is stated there that the guidelines will not be compulsory for them to follow. But I think your guidelines are very general. So the local governments will have much leeway to implement it because you do not specify the size, the area or whatever. So why did you not publish it when that will be more expeditious and the easier and more convenient way of making the local governments and all offices concerned to know about your guidelines?
Your Honor, the guidelines are readily available on our website, and every time we receive a request from the local government, if they request, we send a technical team to sit down with them, even in deciding what is the buffer area, what are the specifications.
But now, in this particular case, there was a query raised before your commission. The issue was raised precisely before your commission. So you had the opportunity to interpret whether your guidelines will be followed, or if it is not complete, whether or not you'd like to supplement your guidelines with respect to this particular situation of the Torre de Manila. But I noticed that there were two letters sent, two separate letters sent by your commission. On November 6, you wrote Mr. Andrade, the consultant of DMCI, and you had a very clear idea of what the issue was all about. you mentioned it's not about obstructing the front view, because the issue was about the background, the back view of the monument. And you also said that the issue is not about whether it is within the boundary of a historical site. That is not the issue. That is what you mentioned. So you know what the problem was all about. And yet you did not deal with that problem. You did not say anything about the issue of the Torre de Manila obstructing the background of the Rizal Monument, when you precisely knew that that was the conflict. And the position of the city of Manila was that, at that time, was that it will ruin the image of the Rizal Monument. But you didn't mention anything about it. You did not make any opinion. Even if your opinion is not binding, why did you not make an opinion? In the same way that you sent an opinion to the Senate. And if you only gave your opinion, the same opinion that you gave to the Senate, the city would have backed off from issuing or from ratifying the building permit. But you didn't say. You only said that, well, for the future, you think that the city of Manila should identify a buffer zone.
May I respond to that?
We understand that it's not for you to dictate, but when your opinion is asked, as the National Historical Commission is mandated to issue guidelines, don't you think it was your duty to render an opinion as to the issue that you were able to precisely identify in your letter to DMCI?
I respond to that, Your Honor.
Yes.
In
And
bo-
before, to give you a complete picture, and then on November 7, Mr. Ludovico Badoy, the Executive Director 3 of the National Historical Commission, sent a separate letter to Alfredo Lim, the mayor. I think the mayor is entitled to receive a reply from the head of the agency. The mayor is the chief executive, and yet it was only Mr. Badoy who sent a letter to him. Executive Director 3, I don't think he's even your deputy. And he said that the Torre de Manila will not obstruct the front view. It is outside the historical site. So that gave them the go signal to go ahead with the confirmation or ratification of the building permit.
I
It
respond.
didn't mention about the issue as you identified in your November 7 letter. It was completely evaded in this November 7, just a day after. Why did you not write yourself the mayor so that you could have given him a complete idea of what the problem is all about?
I respond, Your Honor. Let me first clarify. The property that we were talking about here, the site of the Torre de Manila, is privately owned property. That entire swath of land is not part of the Rizal Park that was declared as a National Heritage Site in 1995. It is well beyond. That's fact one. Fact two, the National Historical Commission has been very, very strict about constructions on the park. A couple of years ago, there was a proposal to build a 2-story restaurant on the park. We refused, right on the park. But the property that was being constructed upon is well outside the park, 450 meters from Taft Avenue, when the legal buffer zone is 5 meters. Therefore, it was very clear to the board of the commission that any decision with respect to that portion was well outside the jurisdiction of the National Historical Commission. That had to be determined by zoning ordinance or some regulation enacted by the city government. If it were a construction on the park, that would have been an entirely different matter. But this was property well outside. In fact, this was what consumed part of the discussion at the board, in the board meetings, whether by law the National Historical Commission had the power or the authority over land outside, well outside, assuming a buffer zone of 5 meters, that was either owned by a university or by private property. And the board found that it didn't have any such authority. We checked our mandate, we checked 186, we looked at what we were authorized to do, and then we went back to our guidelines. And our guidelines clearly state that there must be an enactment by the local government unit. In areas where local ordinances exist, we don't really have any problems, except, well, if there are, there's a clear ordinance to enforce. But in this case, the subject area was well outside the park area. And so there's nothing in our charter that gives us the authority to control the disposition of that land.
Okay. You saying that when you say that keep the vista points and visual corridors to monuments clear from unobstructed viewing and appreciation and photographic opportunities, you mean that this apply only to public owned property, to government owned property, this guideline? This, when you give this guide, when you provided for this guideline, you're saying that this is meant only for public properties?
No, Your
Or
Honor.
are you giving these guidelines to the local government so that they will know what ordinance they can pass,
The distinction, Your Honor.
when they can issue a building permit? I think you're limiting you're limiting the mandate of your office only to public properties. Is
No.
that what you're saying when you issue this guideline?
No, Your Honor. I believe what is being
So
said.
since the Torre de Manila is in a private property, you have nothing to do with it,
No, Your-
whether it obstruct the monument or not, the back view of the monument or not.
I
Is that how
respond.
you want it? Is that how you understand your mandate under the law?
I believe, Your Honor, that the understanding of the NHCP board is that it does not possess the police power to take use or to take over or to prevent the beneficial
Are
use of a, if I may finish, Your Honor, to prevent the beneficial use of a private property. That police power is lodged with the local government, and that
Yes.
is why we keep saying that it's the
Questioning
local
that.
government that
I'm
should.
not questioning like the Secretary of Justice. The opinion of the Secretary is only advisory. It is not mandatory. All government agencies that ask for the opinion of the Secretary of Justice are not bound to follow the opinion of the Secretary. Still, they ask because they need guidelines. So when this local government asks the National Historical Commission, even if the opinion of the National Historical Commission is not binding on them, they expect to get an opinion and not an evasive answer to their letter.
Just to clarify,
Because
Your
that
Honor,
is the mandate of the agency.
it was not the city.
Your opinion will have persuasive effect if your guidelines are not complete and they cannot get guidance from your guidelines because it's not complete, and you are confronted with a specific question about a particular project, you are expected to render an opinion. Just like if you only rendered your opinion in the same way that you sent an opinion to the Senate, then this problem could not have escalated in this manner.
Your Honor, may I just place it on record? It was the representative of the DMCI who sought an opinion from the NHCP, not the City of Manila. In the reply of Dr. Diokno to the DMCI, they mentioned that they would recommend to the City Government of Manila the enactment of an ordinance designating a buffer zone around Rizal Park and prescribing guidelines regarding building development. The very next day, Your Honor, November 7, 2012, the NHCP, through its executive director, wrote Mayor Lim. They did not anymore wait for them to ask for an opinion and already recommended to the city government that they enact such guidelines or such regulations on development of buildings.
Refer to the dispute on hand or the subject matter of the query, it pertained to the future, any future or similar project that may come about. It didn't say anything about the Torre de Manila, which is the subject matter of the query.
May I respond, Your Honor? In international practice and even in our experience locally, the reason why a local ordinance is of foremost importance is because part of the requirement is rigorous public consultation, which is supposed to be carried out by the local city government. The Torre de Manila stands 789 meters behind the Rizal Monument. From the Taft Avenue, about 400 or so meters. So, at that height, if you had moved it 1 kilometer, or even 2, or even 3, you would probably still see it. And because that entire swath of land covered by that, whether it was 1 kilometer, 2, or 3, involved stakeholders. It was very important, and it remains very important, that that kind of public consultation takes place. This happens in many national capital cities in the world. And then the outcome of that consultation is what shapes the decision, or supposed to help shape the decision of the local city council.
Yes, there were consultations held before they asked your opinion about this.
Madam,
And,
we were not
and
privy
they
to
were
any
in
of
a
those
quandary
consultations.
What to do. So they went to you to ask your opinion on whether or not the back view of the monument is protected. But they
By-
didn't obtain any guidelines or any advice from the National Historical Commission. Not obstruct the front view. It's outside the historical area, but you also said that's not the, but you know very well that's not the issue. It's the issue is about the background of the Rizal Monument. So you should have said something about whether or not the visual corridor includes the background of the monument, whether or not the vista points include the background and not only the front view of the monument. That is what they are expecting from you. They wanted to know, the city wanted to know, is the back view covered or not? Or is it only the front view? And then you reply, the front view, the issue is not about the front view, it's the back view. Or what did you say about it? Nothing. Is it covered by the vista points? Is it covered by the visual corridor?
In the
You should have
guidelines on
said
national
something.
monuments,
You should
it
have
is-
said something about it, whether even if you didn't specify the kilometer or the distance from the monument to a particular place. At least you should have said, oh yeah, it's not only the front view. You have to protect the back view. And then you give them guidelines, or you have to determine whether or not how far this construction be located to protect the back view of the monument, or it's for the local government to study that. But at least you should have said it's not only the front view of the monument that is important. In the same way that you mentioned that before the Senate, but the City of Manila did not get any guidance from the National Historical Commission.
I believe, Your Honor, it was very clear to the City of Manila that if they wanted to protect the national monument of Rizal, all they had to do was to issue an ordinance imposing a height restriction on buildings. In the meetings that where NHCP attended, those matters were mentioned to them, Your Honor.
They have that in they have this
The only
ordinance.
way-
They have this ordinance, but the trouble is someone wants an exception from that ordinance and they want to know if the building permit can be issued under this ordinance and whether or not they will allow a variance. So they went to the National Historical Commission to find out what is the meaning of this guideline of because there was already a lot of objection about the back view.
Your Honor, if my recollection is correct, at the time that we discussed this in the board, the City of Manila had already issued its permit and had already, I think, waived the FAR.
It was issued, yes, we know that it was issued, but there was an issue raised, so there was a suspension. I believe there was a suspension.
Which the mayor quickly overturned.
Yeah, it was overturned because the matter was taken up in the board, the appeals board, and it says there, according to the National Historical Commission, it does not obstruct the front view, it is outside the historical site, and therefore there's no problem about it. So that's the letter of the National Historical Commission is one of the justifications used by the City of Manila to ratify and confirm the building permit previously issued.
May I respond, Your Honor? I think your term is correct. Used by the City of Manila. You said the letter of the NHCP was used indeed, because at that time, if I recall, the city was embroiled in some kind of political discussion, which the NHCP was not privy to. And I think it was quite convenient for the city to use a letter that would serve whatever purpose whoever there had. But I think that was most unfair to the Historical Commission. In all cases where we have dealt with local governments, we have had, except here, we have had no problem getting a local city ordinance with the specifications of height. No problem. At that time, when that suspension came, Resolution 121, it was not even addressed to us. It was addressed to the building official of Manila. And the letter to me was, for your information, I have no control over the City of Manila. It appeared to us, correctly or wrongly, but it appeared to us that the City Council was embroiled in some kind of difference of opinion. And it became evident when the decision when that resolution was overturned by the mayor. So you are quite right. They did use our letter to their advantage, which the media also picked up.
By the way, is it does Executive Director 3 Lodovico Badoy has the authority to respond to queries? What is
He does, Your Honor, if I'm out of the office on that day and their letter has to be sent out immediately. In this case, the fact that he sent it with haste the very day after I wrote DMCI shows you how serious we were about getting the City of Manila to do something. Because we could have sat on our whatever and waited for months before we issued the letter. The very next day, without even a request from the city, he wrote.
But if it would have been better if, so that there will be no miscommunication, it would have been better for him to simply give to Mayor Lim a copy of your letter to the MCI, because here he lifted only a certain portion of your reply to the MCI, and that is what the local government cited in the resolution allowing variance and confirming the building permit. So so you see, I'm just saying that some problem arose because of this miscommunication between the parties in this case. You know that this is very inefficient way of dealing with a particular issue. A subordinate sent to the mayor a letter when there was already a communication coming from the head of the office on the same subject matter. Why will he lift leave certain portion of that letter of the boss and send his own letter to Mayor Lim, which is the head of agency. Protocol dictates that when the mayor, when it is a mayor that is asking a question, he is entitled to an answer from the head of the agency. And
His case-
especially so if, and your subordinate, Mr. Ludovico Badoy, should have simply furnished Mr. Mayor Lim a copy of your letter to the DMCI so there will be no miscommunication.
Your Honor, Mayor Lim did not write the NHCP or request them for an opinion. The initial letter came from DMCI. NHCP replied and said they would recommend to the local government, and the very next day, they did recommend to the local government. We will take note of the observation that perhaps it should have been the NHCP chair rather than the executive director, but the fact remains that the agency did write Mayor Lim, and there was no miscommunication. There's nothing that indicates that they
It
did
was
not
very
understand the
unfortunate.
letter.
It was very unfortunate because the letter of the chairman is very clear. They're not quarreling about the front view. They're not quarreling about the area of the historical site. They are quarreling about the back view of the monument. And yet, here comes Mr. Badoy writing another letter saying it will not obstruct the front view, it is outside the historical site. Precisely, that was not the issue.
I believe, Your Honor, that the tenor of the letter to Mayor Lim contains exactly what was stated in the letter to the MCI that was written by Dr. Diokno.
These are two parties similarly interested in the same issue. They should get the same response. And yet, the mayor did not get the best response that he should get.
But, Your Honor, the mayor did not write to us. There was nothing for us to respond to.
Oh, well, even if he didn't write you, at least you should give him the same information and the same opinion that you gave the MCI. But unfortunately, much was lost in the communication to Mayor Lim, whether he asked for it or he did not ask for it. The point is, the same office writing two letters containing different position or stating the position of the office differently. So that cost. I'm just stating my view. I've worked in the government for a long period of time, and I know how this should be done. The head of office has the last say, and all of us should follow what the head of office, the position of the head of office. We cannot write something and extract a portion of what the head of office has written and send it to a party concerned. Look what happened to this. This letter of Mr. Badoy was annexed, was attached to the resolution of the city of Manila. It was cited as a supporting document. So this caused a lot of problem. This simple thing to do should have been avoided in order that this issue could not have escalated the way it has
Thank you, Your Honor.
escalated this time. That's all.
Justice Scarpio.
Can I ask Dr. Diokno, just to sit down, I might have to ask you some questions. Counsel, have you read the column of historian Humberto Campo last week?
The first issue, yes, Your Honor.
He had another column a few days ago, and he narrates that the Knights of Rizal once proposed to construct a national cultural center at the back of the monument.
Your
You're
Honor.
aware of that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Would you have the records for the proposal of the Knights of Rizal?
The records are
Dr.
available at
Diokno,
the
please answer.
NHCP.
Can you approach the podium?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, we do. We have the blueprints.
Can you submit
The
to the court
originals.
copies of the blueprints, all the records regarding the
Absolutely.
proposed cultural center that was supposed to have been set up, constructed just at the back. How far is it from the back?
Your Honor, it is the area practically behind the Rizal
Yeah.
Monument. We have photographs as well of the plan.
Okay, can you submit all those records? Because this came from the petitioner, from the Knights of Rizal, the petitioner here, correct?
Yes, Your
Okay, thank you. Please sit down. Counsel, you of course know that Rizal was executed on December 30, in the morning of
1896.
December 30, 7 a.m. And would you know what was the dying wish of the national hero that he requested from the captain of the firing squad?
Sorry, Your Honor, I may have overlooked
Yeah.
that in my history class.
Yes, Dr. Jokna. He was now in front of the firing squad, and he was asked to turn his back to the firing squad. What was his request? Yes,
Wanted to face the firing squad.
he wanted to face the firing squad. Okay, if he were his back was to the firing squad, he would be facing west, correct? Facing Manila Bay. He wanted to face the firing squad. What were the reasons why he wanted to face the firing squad? He said, I am not a traitor, so I don't want to be shot at the back, correct?
At the back, yes.
And he
Howard.
also said, when the bullets hit me in front, I will fall on the ground with my back to the ground. I will be facing the sky. I want to see the sky. So, in fact, he wanted to face east. It was early morning, 7 a.m., correct? So he wanted to face east for those reasons. But the captain of the guard said, no, you face west, facing the Manila Bay. So his dying wish was to face east, correct? Right now, Rizal is still facing west. We still have denied him his dying wish, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, we still deny him his dying wish. We
Yes, Your
have
Honor.
made him to face west. Now, you showed the letter of Jose Rizal that he wanted to be buried in what space was that? What cemetery?
Paang Bundok, Your Honor.
Paang Bundok? That was
Yeah.
the cemetery that's now the Chinese cemetery or the
Yes, Your Honor.
Manila cemetery?
The North Cemetery, yes.
North Cemetery. Okay. So he wanted to be buried there. But we did not follow his wish.
No, Your Honor.
He wanted to be buried in an unmarked grave with just his name and date of birth and death, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
No fanfare, no big monuments, and he just wanted a fence.
No anniversaries either.
But we refused his written request.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, counsel.
Justice Leonen.
Good afternoon, Dean.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Just to get my bearings correctly, I'd like to go back to the Constitution, and this is Article 14, Section 15. In Article 14, Section 15, there are three verbs there which the state is supposed to perform, and these are conserve, promote, and popularize. Would you agree with me?
Yes, Your Honor.
And conserve, promote, and popularize, there are direct objects. And the objects of these verbs are heritage and resources. Would
Yes,
you
Your
agree with
Honor.
me? And with respect to heritage and resources, there are two key adjectives. Conserve, promote, popularize, historical and cultural, heritage, and resources. Would you agree with me?
Yes, Your Honor.
And therefore, what we are looking at here is conserving and promoting historical heritage in
Yes,
this
Your Honor.
particular case, at least for this particular argument of the petitioner. Would you agree with me?
Yes, Your Honor.
And just to put it in context, the next section, Section 16, states that part of the cultural treasure of the nation are artistic and historical wealth. Would you agree with me?
Yes, Your Honor.
Therefore, whatever is our historic wealth is also part of our culture. Would you agree with that?
I would agree.
Therefore, we will say that history is a product of our culture as much as history also defines our culture. Am I correct in that?
Yes, Your Honor.
And here, Dean, let me go into a dangerous discipline, which is that of history. And if you feel that you have to pass on the floor to the Director of the National Historical Commission, I would understand. Because my next question is, what exactly is history? Because we need to define what is it that we are protecting with the monument. Is it our wish of how to remember Rizal, or is it our history per se? But step by step, may I ask what is meant by history?
May I defer to the Chair of the National Historical Commission, Your Honor?
I know, Dr. Jokno, that this constitutes an entire discipline, and with all its dissertations and all, but just in brief, for us lawyers and justices here, can you give us an idea of what history really is?
History is a narrative about the past that is based on evidence.
Okay.
Reliable, credible evidence, usually primary sources.
Okay. Would I be correct in saying that history is a discipline in the sense of coming out with that product called the narrative or the history?
You are correct, Your Honor.
Okay. I don't go into into history as a discipline. I just go into the narrative called history. And let me just be precise, a little bit more precise about it. So our past consists of many facts. Many of these facts are unknown still to us. And many of these are unknown because the evidence at present is not available. Is that correct?
You are correct, Your Honor.
In fact, there are many things that have happened in the past that we may not know at the present because either the evidence is not there or because we persist in a narrative of history which may not accommodate that past. Is that correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes. Therefore, when we privilege or we give priority to an interpretation of history, per se, by definition, according to some of your historians, we are suppressing one possible real interpretation of what really happened in the past. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Therefore, as per the questions of Justice Carpio a while ago, and per the presentation, if we had a very elaborate monument for Rizal, marking his death, facing the wrong way, carved by a Swiss artist, contrary to that letter, which I think is an educational moment for a lot of us here, that Rizal did not wish a particular monument. So maintaining the shrine, the monument, would in effect be suppressing a part of the history of the life of Rizal. Would you say that, Dr. Jokno?
Yes, Your Honor.
So when the Constitution says conserve and promote historical heritage, it can also mean that we should actually grant Rizal his dying wishes so that our people know that heroes need to be humble, that our leaders need to be humble, that our leaders should not have billboards, should not have markers, should not be epal, because that is somebody that we should emulate, a national hero who said, gusto ko dun lang sa sementeryo ng Paang Bundok. Ayaw ko ng monumento, ayaw ko ng anibersaryo, ayaw ko na malaking magarbo, gusto ko lang isang krus. Therefore, what we are fighting for in this case, what we are quarreling about, in the words of the parties, is really a monument which Rizal did not want. Am I correct?
You are correct, Your Honor. Rizal did not want the monument.
I have no further questions at this point.
Chairman Jokno, would you have in your records photographs of the Rizal monument as you were describing it in your letter, the front view that is unobstructed?
We can obtain photos.
Can you have
Yes,
can you
Your
send
Honor.
pictures of those shots
Yes, Your Honor.
as you understood it in
Yes,
your
Your Honor.
letter?
Yes, Your Honor.
And would you also, would you also have other monuments of national heroes? Can you give us a summary of the treatment of those monuments in their present form?
In Metro Manila, Your Honor?
Well, nationally, the category of monuments that you have, because I understand that in Caloocan, for example, the city council wants to have a better location for, is that the present controversy in Caloocan?
The problem with there, Your Honor, is started with the construction of the LRT. Years
Can you
ago.
tell us what is the problem there again? It
Okay,
started with the construction of the
Andres
LRT?
Bonifacio Monument
Okay.
is located on a rotonda. Okay, I don't believe that it does not have a sightline because it is rotonda. You can still see it. It depends on what your
You can
viewpoint
still
is.
see the monument
Yes.
of Andres Bonifacio
Yes.
from the front,
Yes.
even though the background is SM.
Not only SM, Your Honor,
Yes.
there are ugly billboards all around, even in the background. And then the LRT hovers above it, so it changes the composition of the monument. The local government of Caloocan is aware of these concerns. At one time, they approached us about the possibility of raising the entire platform, but the problem is the LRT. on top,
If we
so-
raise the platform of Andres Bonifacio, it will hit the LRT and it will inconvenience all the commuters because you have to stop service along that line. So do you think that the service to commuters is a very valued service by the community?
It is, Your Honor.
Now, can you explain to me the last paragraph in your letter to Solicitor General Hilbay, where you say that the National Historical Commission does not want to imprison or shackle the ability of future generations to create history somewhere along that
Yeah,
line?
yes.
Can you explain that? Can you read that line to us and then explain what you mean by the ability even of a historical approach that will allow the future generations also to give their inputs?
Yes. In that letter, Your Honor, I wrote the Solicitor General about the far-reaching implications of his new position. One was with regard to the rule of law. The second was with regard to the right of the present generation to create new heritage alongside the heritage of our ancestors. What is the basis of that? A fundamental concept in the discipline of history, Your Honor, is the concept of historical agency, which is the power of a people to create their own history, including artifacts, including traces, including remnants of that history. And one of the concerns in heritage, in the field of heritage today, and this is true not only in the Philippines, Your Honor, but in many other cities in the world, is how to balance the heritage of our ancestors with the new developments of this century. Because 100 years down the line, whatever is constructed now will constitute the heritage of this generation. According to the RA 166, the presumed important cultural property is only defined as 50 years old. But let's say we go 100 years down the line, all these new heritage now will be part of the heritage of this generation. So part of our concern as historians is, just as our ancestors were not denied by their ancestors the right to create the heritage that they did a century ago, who are we in this century to deny the same to the present generation or even to future generations? Because life goes on well beyond our death, and future generations have to have something that tells them about this century, the next century, and the next century. This was what I was referring to, Your Honor.
Now I notice, for example, that the Ninoy Aquino Monument along the Ayala Triangle is very small compared to the buildings around it. And I think there are further developments along the formerly open space behind it. So is this treatment a valid approach? Is it allowable in an urban setting for such treatment to be given to the Ninoy Aquino statue?
Well, of course, Your Honor, the buildings were there well before Senator Ninoy Aquino was assassinated and the monument was erected. But of course, one could argue that is that a fitting or proper treatment for him? And I go back to the point I raised earlier. If the local community, if the people of the city don't find it objectionable, if they think that that is something that they can live with, that they do not see the monument denigrated at all by these buildings around, that apparently is a decision in Makati, because we have not received any complaints, at least our agency has not received any complaints from the city of Makati about the treatment of the Ninoy Aquino monument in Ugarte.
What about the Lady of EDSA Shrine and the People Power Monument, which right now are adjacent to the MRT line and the very large malls?
Practice is for every city or town or municipality, they must really plan their urban development taking into account important historic sites and structures. I myself was taken aback when the statue was erected right next to the mall, and then now you have the transportation. But we have not received a complaint about it. Does it look pretty? I'm sure many would say it does not look pretty. There is apparently no local ordinance that forbids it.
Are there monuments of national heroes elsewhere in other cities in the world which are placed in very congested urban settings and where you have also buildings behind? Because I was surfing the web and I saw that there were, but I could not, of course, rely on simply on what I was surfing on the web. So I wanted to find out if there are.
May I check, Your Honor?
Please, and
yes.
how these cities are treating their
Yes.
the monuments of their national heroes.
What we are aware of, Your Honor, are actual World Heritage sites that around which some development has taken place.
In other words, how do cities and monuments live together? Okay, so
We will do the research.
thank you. Please enlighten us. Justice Velasco has some questions for NHCP.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Counsel, your position is that NHCP is being unfairly accused of not doing its job regarding this controversy. Is that the position you have taken?
No, Your Honor. Our position is
okay,
that
restate your position.
our position is that we find ourselves having in this mandamus case when no party has actually accused us of neglecting our duty except for the Solicitor General. Be that
okay.
as it may, we submit, Your Honor, that the NHCP has not been remiss in its duties.
You're saying that because the charter of NHCP does not contain any duty on your part to protect and preserve the vista points, the vista corridors, and the sight line relating to the Rizal Monument. Is that correct?
The charter, Your Honor, of the Heritage Law, RA 166, Section 25, Your Honor, that is our position.
What is the charter of NHCP?
186, Your Honor, is the charter
It's
of
186.
NHCP. Yes.
166 pertains to what?
The Heritage Law, Your Honor,
Heritage
which
law.
contains
But the charter of NHCP is 186.
Yes, Your Honor.
And what specifically is the mandate of the NHCP under RA 186?
Primarily,
Can you enumerate?
yes, Your Honor. The primary mandate of the NHCP is to answer all questions of historical fact. One of its subsidiary duties, which is not found in the 186 but is found in 166,
No, why,
is to
why don't you
issue
limit,
a...
excuse me, why don't you limit yourself first to 186? Because that's the charter of the NHCP. Anyway, just to expedite, I'll just read Section 5, no? That is, that contains the general mandate of NHCP. Letter A, conduct and support all kinds of research relating to Philippine, national, and local history.
Yes, Your
Okay?
Honor.
Does this have anything to do with the present controversy now? Does the NHCP have any duty under this letter A of Section 5?
No, Your Honor.
Letter B, develop educational materials in various media, implement historical, educational activities for the popularization of Philippine history, and disseminate information regarding Philippine historical events, dates, places, and personages.
No, Your Honor.
Letter C, undertake and prescribe the manner of restoration, conservation, and protection of the country's historical movable and immovable objects. Does this
Your Honor.
relate to the present controversy now?
I don't believe so, Your Honor.
Can it be argued that under this section, NHCP is supposed to protect the sightline, the vista corridors, and the vista points pertaining to the Rizal Monument?
If that is the case, Your Honor, the NHCP
No, I'm
has...
just asking
yes,
you
Your
if
Honor.
it pertains to those matters.
Yes, it could be interpreted that way, but in which case, if Your Honor, please, the NHCP has issued guidelines on setting views and vista points, guidelines on national monuments.
Letter C pertains to the movable or immovable objects, historical movable or immovable objects. Okay? Does this include the sightline, vista corridors, and the vista points?
No, Your Honor, I don't think it would.
Letter D, manage, maintain, administer national shrines, monuments, historical sites, edifices, and landmarks of significant historico-cultural value. Does this require any duty on the part of the NHCP to maintain the sightline relating to the Rizal Monument?
No, Your Honor.
Letter E, actively engage in the settlement or resolution of controversies or issues relative to historical personages, places, dates, and events.
No relation either, Your Honor.
Okay. So, under the Charter 186, does the NHCP have the power to issue rules and regulations?
Yes, it has the power to issue implementing
And
rules
it has
and
in fact
regulations,
issued
Your Honor.
rules and regulations, right?
Yes,
Approved
Your
last
Honor.
April 7, 2011.
Yes, Your Honor.
Later on, published in the Official Gazette last February 13, 2012, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there anything in the rules that was issued by the National Historical Commission pertaining to sightline, vista corridors, or vista points relating to the Rizal Monument?
Not that I am aware of, Your Honor.
Has the Rizal Monument or the Luneta Park been declared by the NHCP as a historic site?
It was declared by the National Historical Institute, the predecessor of NHCP, as such in 1995, Your Honor. National
It was
Historical
the
Site.
National
The park, the Rizal Park, Your
The
Honor.
Rizal Park was declared as a historic site by
By the National Historical Institute, the predecessor of the NHCP.
the predecessor. Okay. So, other than declaring it as a historic site, does the Charter 186 require any other duty on the part of NHCP in preserving the historic site?
Not that I am aware of, Your Honor.
Does the historic site include the sightline, the vista corridors, and the vista points?
Our understanding is that it does not.
Okay. The rules and regulations were issued with prior consultation with other government agencies, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And that is in conformity with RA 186, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, the guidelines issued by NHCP, and I've asked this question before, does it have the force and effect of law? And were these issued pursuant to the rulemaking power of the NHCP under Republic Act 186?
I do not believe they were issued under the rulemaking power given under RA
What are these
186.
guidelines? Merely a guide?
They are merely a guide, Your Honor. They set forth the different factors that the local government units should look at when protecting monuments and sites. For instance, they speak of the dominance of the site, they speak of the site and orientation, the artistic style, design materials, and the development of the vicinity.
Okay, the guidelines, can you say that these are only recommendations on the part of the NHCP regarding the preservation of monuments?
Yes, national monuments and
As a matter of fact, it's very clear in the last portion of the guidelines that it is highly recommended that the towns and cities formulate zoning guidelines or local ordinances for the protection and development of monument sites, right?
yes, Your Honor.
So it falls to the shoulders of the city council or the municipal council, like the Taal town. They came up with their own ordinance. The city of Manila is required, or not really required, but the NHCP recommended to them that they should issue the city ordinance for the protection and preservation of the historic sites or monuments, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
But unfortunately, what happened is that the ordinance proposed to be that protective ordinance of the monuments and historic sites were vetoed by then Mayor Alfredo Lim.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so you're saying now that the monuments here, the historic sites in the city of Manila, are unprotected?
No, Your Honor, they are protected. However, as far as the protection of the visual corridor, the setting, the view, that really is a function that must rest with the local government in consultation with the local community. The NHCP would be in no position to determine what the local community would want to protect, Your Honor.
Okay, there are other government agencies, no, involved in the protection and preservation of the cultural heritage and national treasures. NCCA, National Commission for Culture and Arts,
Yes, Your Honor.
National Museum, National Historical Institute. What particular government agency has the duty under the law in relation to the preservation or protection of the sightline or the vista corridors or the vista points of the Rizal Monument or the Luneta Park? What
Well-
government agency in particular has this duty to preserve the sightline, vista corridors, and vista points?
The National Museum declared the Rizal Monument as a national cultural treasure. Insofar as it is a national cultural treasure, then it's the
Excuse
National
me, is that
Museum
the same
that
as a
is-
heritage zone?
That's different, Your
It's
Honor.
different. Was the Luneta Park already declared a heritage zone?
It was not declared
No.
a heritage zone because the IRR of RA 166, Rule 5, Section 15.2 requires a petition by the local government unit for a place to be declared a heritage zone. And in this case, Your Honor, no such petition was filed.
Can't the, say, the National Museum or the National Historic Institute, motu proprio, declare it as a heritage zone?
Under the IRR of RA 166, we cannot, Your Honor.
Is the NHCP also covered by Republic Act 166?
Only as far as the issuance of a cease and desist order, Your Honor, it may be read that way.
It is the position of NHCP that it has the power to issue a cease and desist order?
Only when the physical integrity of the monument and park are in danger of destruction or significant alteration, Your Honor.
So you're saying that the power to issue the cease and desist order is limited to the boundaries of the Luneta Park and
The
not
buffer
beyond
zone.
it?
And the buffer zone, yes,
And that's
Your
why
Honor.
you're saying we cannot issue a cease and desist order against Torre de Manila because it does not involve the physical integrity of the historic park or the Rizal Monument itself.
Yes,
Is
Your
that
Honor.
your position?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, aside from you, who are the other agencies who can issue a cease and desist order?
As I understand it, only the National Museum, Your Honor.
National Museum also has the power to issue a cease and desist order.
Yes, Your
And
Honor.
What is its involvement here with regard to this dispute with the Torre de Manila?
It was the National Museum that declared the Rizal Monument a national cultural treasure, Your Honor.
Okay, so it was declared. But regarding this dispute, what action, if any, was taken by the National Museum?
I cannot speak for them, but as far as I'm aware, Your Honor, none.
Okay. Are you aware of any rule or regulation issued by the National Museum regarding the preservation of the sightline, vista corridors, and vista points of the Rizal Monument?
I'm not aware of any, Your Honor.
So right now, there is no law or rule that protects the sightlines, vista corridors, and vista points of any historic monument or historical site or heritage zone in the Philippines?
No law has been passed. However, there is a pending bill, Senate Bill number 2841, sponsored by Senator Pia Cayetano, where she proposes to remove the word physical from the term physical integrity, which would then, I suppose, include now visual integrity if the law is passed, if the bill is passed.
So until such time, the cultural agencies have no power under existing or prevailing laws to exercise certain or undertake certain measures to protect the alleged sightlines, vista corridors, and vista points.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Thank you, Chief.
Dean Jokno, you are discharged.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Justice Sardileza wants to ask a few more
Just
questions.
a few more questions. Can I ask that the first slide that I had be brought back to the screen? Counsel, just to refresh everybody's memory, in 1995, Rizal, the park itself was declared a historic site by the National Historical Institute.
Yes,
right?
I stand corrected. It's the park,
Do you
Your
have a
Honor.
copy of the resolution number 7, series of 1995?
I have a copy, Your Honor. May I just get my binder?
And then sometime in August 15, 2013, the National Historical Commission declared the Rizal Monument, the monument, not the park, as a national monument.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there any particular reason why the NHCP in 2013 declared the Rizal Monument as a national monument on top of the 1995 declaration of the park
May I
as a
ask
historical site?
Dr. Diokno to answer the question?
Your Honor, 2013 was the centenary of the making of the monument by Kisling. So on the occasion of that year, the 100th year, the Board of the Historical Commission declared the Rizal Monument a national monument.
Thank you. Can I now go to the declaration by the National Historical Institute of the Rizal Park as a National Historical Site? Do you have your copy, Counsel?
I don't think I have a copy
Well,
of
I have a
Proclamation
copy
number
just to expedite, Counsel, just so that you can confirm. Bailiff, can I request that we give a copy to Counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
And the few questions that I have is just to set the record kind of straight on why the Rizal Park was declared a National Historical Site, vis-a-vis some questions about Rizal Park centering on Jose Rizal. In the whereas clauses of the resolution, and this was approved July 5, 1995. At that time, the National Historical Institute was chaired by Serafin Quezon. The members were Father Gabriel Casal, Dr. Marcelino Foronda, Secretary Onofre de Corpus, Samuel K. Tan, and Professor Helen Tubangi, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, the whereas clauses say, among others, and it's entitled Declaring Rizal Park, in parentheses, Bagumbayan, close parentheses, as National Historical Site. And among others, the whereas clauses says, no other piece of land outside Fort Santiago at Intramuros is more sacred and hallowed than the former Bagumbayan of the Spanish colonial era. Do you see that, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. And it says, historical records show that several battles were fought in Bagumbayan in 1574, the defense of Raja Suliman against Limahong.
Yes, Your
In
Honor.
1762, the combined British and East India Company forces against General Draper. That's in 1762.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then it says, since 1840, Bagumbayan served as execution ground for heroes and martyrs.
Yes, Your Honor.
Among them. And then it enumerates a series of heroes and martyrs. I will not be able to read all of them because they total 99 heroes and martyrs.
Yes, Your Honor.
Among the prominent ones would be February 17, 1872, 3 were executed, Father Burgos, Zamora, and Gomez, Gomburza, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
August 31, 1896, 57 unknown Katipuneros captured after the Battle of San Juan del Monte, pinaglabanan.
Yes, Your Honor.
It says 57, it doesn't say who. September 4, 1896, Katipunan leaders, it enumerates 4. I will cite only one name because it's an interesting name. Among the Katipunan leaders is a Ramon Peralta. That's your uncle. You confirm, Justice Peralta, that it's your uncle. Now, and then it says, Jose Rizal, our national hero, December 30, 1896, right? And then 11 patriots of Bicolandia. They are all enumerated, but I will not name names anymore. Then January 11, 1897, 13 patriots, again 13 names. February 6, 1897, 10 patriots, there are 10 names. Then the next whereas clause says, whereas Bagumbayan later became known as Rizal Park, wherein are interred the mortal remains of our national hero, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And then the next whereas clause, and please listen carefully. Whereas Rizal Park is a revered historical site strongly associated with the ideals of liberty and struggle for freedom of the Filipino people.
Yes,
I
Your
will
Honor.
repeat. Whereas Rizal Park is a revered historical site strongly associated with the ideals of liberty and struggle for freedom of the Filipino people.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then the next whereas clause, whereas Rizal Park has been sanctified by history and traditions.
Yes, Your Honor.
My point, counsel, is that there's been discussion about the Rizal Park focusing on Jose Rizal. When in fact, if you read the resolution declaring the Rizal Park or Bagumbayan as a National Historical Site, all the whereas clauses say there were 99 martyrs who died there. It has a long history of defending freedom. And so it really stands for its strong association with the ideals of liberty and the struggle for freedom of the Filipino people, regardless of who are the names, right? And so comments were made a while ago about leveraging history. And of course, the National Historical Commission can have an amendatory citation. For example, if there are 99 martyrs, you can have 99 statues.
Would be within there.
Just to pursue the point about leveraging history. Why is Rizal so prominently discussed or mentioned? My point is, the declaration talks about a total number of people, including Rizal, who are considered martyrs and heroes. Thank you, Counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Justice Leonen.
Just a few more questions, Counsel. A while ago, Dr. Diokno mentioned that the present generation has the right to create, perhaps has the right to acknowledge historical artifacts. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And these historical artifacts are acknowledged by the present generation to assist them, the present generation, and perhaps future generations to memorialize certain significant events that have happened in the past. Is this
Yes,
correct?
Your Honor.
And of course, all historical artifacts, the thing, like a park, has physical existence. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. And because it has physical existence, in the pantheon of our constitutional order, the mere fact that there is a declaration of a historical artifact does not mean that 100 kilometers from its border, all constitutional rights are waived. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
In fact, our laws are of such a nature that it identifies the legal authorities, the governmental bodies that will define the consequence of acknowledging a historical artifact. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Such as, for instance, the height of buildings is clearly, perhaps, according to your presentation, a power that is given to a local government unit. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your
Did I
Honor.
understand your submission correctly?
Yes, Your Honor.
And it is given to a local government unit, according to Chair Diokno, to Dr. Diokno, because the local government unit consults with the public, and the public will determine whether the protection given to that park is 5 meters, 500 meters, 500 kilometers, because there is a balance between the heritage and the right to that heritage, as well as the developmental rights away from the artifact. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And in this particular case, the National Historical Commission of the Philippines can only provide advice because it is not a local government unit. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
It is not a legislative body.
Yes, Your Honor. It's
And
not.
therefore, the City of Manila had the opportunity to actually put a height requirement, but it did not do so.
Yes,
There was
Your
an
Honor.
ordinance, but it was vetoed by the mayor. Is that
That's
correct?
correct, Your Honor.
And now we have the opportunity of the Senate of the Republic of the Philippines speaking for the national government, now putting the balance by saying, hey, it's not only physical integrity, but integrity per se. And therefore, they need a new law now in order to be clear about the balance of rights after we recognize the historical artifact called the Rizal Monument. Is this not
Yes,
correct?
Your Honor.
So it is not the power of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines to actually state a mandatory law with respect to heights of buildings. Is this not correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Finally, with respect to some historical questions. First and foremost, what is the garment of Rizal in that monument? Is he in Barong Tagalog?
I believe he is, Your Honor, but my
No, he
powers
is
of
in
observation
an
are not
overcoat.
very
According
good.
to our resident historian on the bench, I learned this from Justice Carpio to attribute it. He is wearing an overcoat. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And do you wear overcoats in the Philippines, Dean?
No, Your
No.
Honor.
So therefore, the Swiss artist put in his ideas, not the 99 martyrs in that monument. Is that not correct?
That is correct, Your
And
Honor.
just to be clear, did Rizal endorse the DMCI condominium?
No, Your Honor.
So it is not also a historical fact that he was for a condominium. Is that not correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Just to be very clear. And finally, did Rizal, in fact, it was not Rizal that certified that condominium. It was Resti Rebong.
Yes,
Is that
Your
not
Honor.
correct? And Resti Rebong, is he a historical figure?
No, Your Honor.
I don't think so. He is the planning officer of the City of Manila, who henceforth will become historical after this case. Is this not
Yes,
correct?
Your Honor.
Yes. And therefore, we are finding here the balance of rights as a result of the recognition of a historical artifact. And you have quoted in your presentation something from former Chief Justice, that we cannot give legal shortcuts. Why is that, counsel? We are powerful. We are the Supreme Court. Why can we not create legal shortcuts, and that becomes the rule of law. What is so wrong with that?
First place, Your Honor, even this court must respect separation of powers. And in the second place, Your Honor, even this court must respect the rule of law, which is the fabric that puts together our entire legal system.
Thank you, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Justice Carpio.
Counsel, just a point of clarification. When Rizal was executed that day of June 30th, he fell not in the spot where the monument now stands, correct?
That is correct,
He
Your Honor.
fell 100 meters away from the spot where the monument
Yes, Your
now
Honor.
stands, correct?
Yes.
So if you protect the sightline now, where the monument stands, you're not really attuned to history, correct?
That is correct,
You're
Your Honor.
protecting something that's artificial.
Yes, Your Honor.
If you want to protect the sightline, the hallowed ground where Rizal fell, do it 100 meters away, where he actually fell, correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel.
You're discharged, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor.
May I request Attorney Domingo, Engineer Torres, and Architect Kuntapay, and Attorney Bernardo to kindly stand. This court wishes to express its gratitude for your bearing with us for this, for all 6 sessions. However, for reasons that are quite obvious to everyone, we have had so many sessions already, and at this point, all of you would already have an idea on what you would put in your memoranda that would assist the court in sifting over the issues that are before it. So the court will excuse you from having to answer orally at this point in time. It will just request your helpful advice on these issues that are before the court, and with special emphasis on the fact that, as you may have already noticed, the issues that are before us right now are quite complicated, and we need a delineation between the legal responsibilities in the various codes and regulations that already have been cited in all of these arguments. So, Justice Hardeleza, there is a request that we just ask them to submit their memorandum because it's
Yes,
already
Chief.
6 session.
If I may, can I just specify
Yes, please,
one
Justice.
area,
Yes, yes.
which each
Okay,
of them...
so we will allow them to sit so they can take notes?
No, in fact, they can stay there and they can take
Okay.
notes. Yes, Chief, you can please sit down.
Sit and please take your seats and you can take notes because these are specific requests.
To Mr. Kuntapay and the other gentleman both from DPWH, right? You have heard, I have a specific questions that you please kindly cover in your respective memorandum. You have heard that, well, you should be familiar by now with the Ordinance of Manila, 8119. There is a footprint measurement. There is a footprint measurement offered by DMCI. And just again for clarity, DMCI counsel, can we have it again? What is the exact footprint that has been put on the table by DMCI?
The footprint, Your Honor, is 1,639 square meters, Your Honor.
Yes, so 1,639. 39.
Square meters.
Thank you, counsel. And please stay please stay on the podium, counsel. So the two gentlemen from the DPWH have heard that figure, and the total area of the lot is, can we have it again, counsel?
7,556 square meters, Your Honor.
7,556. I'm sorry, 57.
56, Your Honor.
56, that's right. So, to the two gentlemen from the DPWH, the question that I would like to, I suggest to be covered in your memoranda is, you know there is a far 4 under the ordinance, which is without variance. And there was a proceedings on variance. So the question I would like the two of you to cover in your memorandum is, assuming there is no variance, assuming on FAR 4, how many floors or how many stories will the torre be? Because I heard different versions. One version, I think from the Solgen, is it's only up to 7. According to KOR, it's 8, I think. According to DMCI, it's 18. And just today, we received a manifestation from the City of Manila appending the minutes of the MBZAA meeting of December 23, 2014, right? And I will read to you I don't seem to have it, but it says, the City of Manila says, without the variance, Torre is entitled to 25 floors. So, is that City of Manila is here? You appended the minutes signed by Mr. Lacuna, right? And can you confirm that the minutes say? But you filed a manifestation today, right? Yesterday, I'm sorry. Yes, but the second part is the minutes of the MBZAA meeting. And I think line 80, can you look at, there's a statement there about without a variance, on line 80, number 7.
No clear-cut regulation on building height limit that can be applied to the project, since the floor area ratio, which is the regulating measure under the zoning ordinance, only influences but not limits the height of a building. As discussed in the case report, highlights using the same building footprint, Torre de Manila may be allowed a total of 25 floors, even without variance, and with that height, same issue on Vista will still exist. Likewise, based on the National Building Code, Torre de Manila is allowed up to 60 plus floors, Your Honor.
Yeah, so you confirm, counsel for the City of Manila,
Yes, we confirm those figures.
that the position, the minutes of the MBZAA meeting state that even without a variance, meaning staying at FAR 4, Torre de Manila may be allowed a total of 25 floors.
Yes, Your Honor.
So you confirm it?
Yes, Your Honor.
And that's the only factual matter that I would like the officers from the DPWH to cover in their respective memorandum, because from where I sit, I have 4 versions. One is up to 7, up to 8, up to 18, and then City of Manila, as of yesterday, says up to 25. So,
Thank you, councils. Now, with respect to the request to the Amici Curie, may we please request that you kindly cover the issues that were already discussed here, especially helping the court, as we said, clarify the legal responsibilities, delineations, and with a special request for you to explain to us the situation of variances. When you talk about variances, is it really common, or a variance is theoretically an exception? What is the current practice on the matter, because we are not obviously experts on the matter.
Madam
Now-
Chair,
Yes?
Can I be allowed? Yes.
Okay, Justice Hardileza.
Thank you, Chief. And with respect to Attorney Bernardo from the HLURB, I have only one question. Knights of Rizal has stated a position that the Ordinance 8119 is not valid because it has not been approved by the HLURB. And I would like HLURB to answer that question. What is the position of HLURB? Under, under the law, does it need approval by HLURB? And what is the view of HLURB? If that was not approved, what is the effect? That would be all, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The counsels for the parties will please stand. You have already noted the oral instructions given to you by the different justices who made interpellations. Kindly submit responses to them together with your memoranda. Documents and photographs have also been requested of your clients. Kindly submit to them together with your memoranda. And all parties are hereby given a non-extendable period of 20 days from today. This session is hereby adjourned.